What must an entrepreneur assume when starting a business? I've written a book on it. I've helped hundreds. We're going to go through and I'm going to give you 6 key things you got to keep in mind. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. All right, right on for you, considering that you want to go out and start your business. Fantastic. The first thing that I'm going to suggest, first of 6 things, is start understanding what are your personal motivations. And bear with me on this, because this is an area that most people screw the pooch, and it's really, really important. But identify what would amazing look like in your life a year from now, and really build the life of your dreams in your head first, and then what is the business that would fit with that. The reason this is important is that more often than not, people go out and build a business and then they try and squeeze their life in around it, and they end up very disenfranchised. They end up very frustrated. And as a result, they don't do a very good job in their business, and things don't work nearly as well as they should. So we actually talk a lot about that in the beginning of the book and in the course on how can you define what does amazing look like for you first, and then what are some of the skills, and then you build the business around what's going to fit for your lifestyle. Sounds like a backward way, but it's the most important thing to start with, because the number of people who leave a job because they think it's a crappy job, think it's going to be grass is greener on the other side, they go start their business, they go in, they invest a bunch of money and energy and all this others, and then they're just in a whole different turnstile, just running. And they forget why they wanted to do it. So start making sure that you're clear on your why first. The second thing is clearly define what is the product or service you're offering. And really narrow it down as much as you can to about 80%, but don't finish it all the way. But think about what is unique about it. How do you know that? Why is somebody going to value you versus somebody else? Try and understand those components. What's going to be different, and how are you solving it away? Maybe you have a tremendous amount of experience in a certain area. Maybe you have certain knowledge or access to certain tools or resources in certain ways. Those are great, and we talk again about that, but don't get it completely done. Get it close, but be open to consider making adjustments with that last 20%, changing the direction that allows you to pivot, that may allow you to meet your market in a much better place. The third thing that you've got to assume is you have to understand what is the market out there. You have to assume that there's going to be other people. There's always other people trying to build that mousetrap in a different way. And the best way to start with the market is transition from being the supplier of the product or service to considering, actually, you know what, act as if you were somebody who needs that product or service. And then go out and how would you solve for it? We talk a lot about this in the market assessments and other things in this channel, so please feel free to check those out. But go through and really dig in and dive to try and figure out what would amazing look like for that market. How are other people doing it? Do your outreach, talk to them. You may even find somebody who's willing to subcontract some things. There's some other things around that. But this is going to help you define your motivations for you personally, identify that product or service, and then start clearly defining the market. If these things all smell right, it seems like it's the right direction, it's like, yeah, this is feeling pretty good, then the next step that you have to assume is that you can't do it all. You have to assume that you're going to have to find others that can help you. Now, you're accountable as the entrepreneur for getting everything done, but you're not necessarily the one who has to do it all. And this is where building a great team of advisors. And you can do this for no money, but and we specifically talk about in other videos and in the books and the courses on how do we find a great small business accountant? How do we find a great small business attorney? How do we find a great small business insurance agent, a great small business banker, maybe an advertising person, maybe a real estate person, depending on what you need. But do this, and this is going to help you really start to build out and flesh out your entire business plan so that it's really, really, really clear. You're going to see what are the extra expenses, what is the liability, and maybe find some other people, other relationships. And man, when you do that, it's going to make it pretty easy. And at that point, it'll be like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Hell yeah, I'm in. Or, wow, it's close, but it's not there. Hell no, I'm not. Celebrate that as a win if it isn't, because you can come back, maybe you go back to your product or your product or service and say, okay, what if I tweak it this way? Does it make it a no-brainer? but you have to make sure it's a no-brainer. And it's one of the biggest challenges because people are like, yeah, this is my shot, I gotta take it. It's like, no, it isn't. Slow down, step back and say, no, is this right? Is this the thing? And then the sixth most important assumption you have to have is that you have to have the assumption that you're gonna have the personal self-discipline to show up and do the work. This is kind of harsh, but it's direct. You're not gonna have a boss holding your feet to the fire. You have to be the one. If you wanna sleep in until noon every day, you can, but you're not gonna get paid. So you have to really have those conversations around, are you gonna have that personal discipline? And we talk a lot about that in the book as well. But once you do that and you schedule out that first 6 months and you just knock the cover off the ball, you're gonna get that flywheel spinning and things will start. So what must an entrepreneur assume when starting a business? Well, first, clearly define your personal motivations. Second, what is your product or service and why somebody would buy from you? Third, what's the market look like? You have to assume that the market's changing, but do I fit and how would my product or service fit with that? You have to assume that you're going to have to be accountable and how to build a great team of advisors to answer those questions and smoke out any of those blind spots. Fourth, you have to assume that you shouldn't do it if it's not a no-brainer. If it's a no-brainer, assume that it's going to be okay. And lastly, assume that you're going to have the personal discipline to make it work. So ideally, you found some value with this. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Check out our courses at aspiringsolopreneur.com. Subscribe and forward this on. All right. Thank you very much for investing the time. Keep smiling.